to welcome you all. Thank you so much. Kia, why don't you do welcomes and greetings and get us started in this amazing conversation?
Okay, thank you, AC. Um, so I've been having video difficulties, which is why my video is off and you just get my voice. But the important people here who will be doing all of their wisdom sharing, you can see them all. So that's a win I'm going to count. And I would like to welcome everyone to Journey Towards Jubilee, how sacred traditions create and sustain hope through difficult times. This came out because I was inspired by this year's, the Catholic Holy Year's theme is Pilgrims of Hope. Everyone knows what it is to hope. I'm giving you a quote now. You can't see my hand movements. So everyone knows what it is to hope. In the heart of each person, hope dwells as the desire and expectation of good things to come, despite our not knowing what the future may bring. Even so, uncertainty about the future may at times give rise to conflicting feelings, ranging from confident trust to apprehensiveness, from serenity to anxiety, from firm conviction to hesitation and doubt. Often we come across people who are discouraged, pessimistic, and cynical about the future, as if nothing could possibly bring them happiness. For all of us, may the Jubilee be an opportunity to be renewed in hope. And that's a quote from the Bull of Indiction of the Ordinary Jubilee year, 2025. And it's not just Catholicism, but all sacred traditions are familiar with. They're no strangers to navigating troubled waters. And we are also very familiar with resiliency. So we all have stories of sacred ancestors who taught everyone about the strength and courage needed for times such as these. We are in the big climate picture and then in our current surroundings right now. And let's see, I'm in charge of this now. So for myself, I am Kia Kochi. I use she, her pronouns. I am the multi-faith program manager at Earth Ministry, Washington Interfaith Power and Light. And we have Reverend A.C. Churchill, who uses they, them pronouns. Now we're going to get to our land acknowledgement before we begin anything, because we do start all of our events and our gatherings at Earth Ministry, Washington Interfaith Power and Light with a land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is one of the many ways to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories, as well as to honor tribes in the land itself. We are located within the unceded territories of Northwest Native Nations. Our office is on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past, present, and future. And then very quickly, before we get into all the fun stuff, we would like to take a moment to thank our donors whose contributions have made this evening possible. Some of you, Faith, Power, and Light receives enables us to offer more of our programming and the trainings that we sometimes do free of charge. And for the programming, we cannot offer for free. Donations allow us to set registration fees at prices that are accessible. So if you are not already a donor and value opportunities like this event, we hope you will consider making a gift in support of our work. Super easy to do. I have the bit.ly right there and then a QR code if you're not on your phone and can use it to point right there. It'll take you straight to our donations page. So during this, it is primarily going to be our panelists speaking, responding to each other, responding to questions that I ask. But we do want to give everyone an opportunity to ask their questions as well. So while everyone is speaking, what I would like everyone to do is if you have a question, please put it in the chat and we will monitor that. And then we will be asking them out to the panelists. And then if the panelists choose to engage voice to voice, then we can unmute people and they can have that opportunity. But for the most part, it'll just be them responding to what's in the chat. And then I have some points of etiquette for the chat, meeting new people. It's nice to be able to keep an open mind. We want to speak from personal experience if you choose to include that in your own question, if you want to frame it a certain way, please do speak from what you know and what you have experienced. Again, keep an open mind because we might be learning new things. What we learn might challenge what you thought you knew. And then avoid making generalizations. So we don't want to lump everyone as being one thing. We are all very unique in this world, and there are so many of us in so many ways of being. We don't want to generalize everyone. Okay, and now we have our wonderful panelists. So I'm going to quickly introduce them and then going to ask them to introduce themselves more fully if they would like to be more specific about the work, their inspiration, and then we'll get into the questions. So we have the Venerable Thupten Deki, who is in Newport, Washington, which is Eastern Washington. Then we have Nagmana Shirazi, who is in Spokane, Washington. We have Rabbi Molly Weisel, who is in Bellevue, Washington, and I think she lives somewhere else over here as well, but the work is in Bellevue. And then we have Vera Chopra, who I'm actually not sure, but I think West Side as well. And if we could unmute our panelists, or if they want to unmute themselves, let's just go in order of the screen that we see right now, and just if you want to share anything more. And I will stop sharing. So that would be Decky.
Oh, sorry. It shifted around. Thanks for the cue.
I guess I took
Yeah. I'm Tupten
the
Dakey.
screen away now, so we don't know what order everyone.
Right. It's wonderful to be here with everybody today. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist nun living at Shravasti Abbey, which is one of the few Tibetan Buddhist training monasteries in the US. And it happens to be in Washington, so how lucky we are. I've been ordained for about 5 years, but I've been coming and practicing Buddhism for at least 15 years. At the Abbey, we have 22 residents, 4 cats, lots of turkeys and deer. And before ordaining, I was a wildlife biologist for the US Forest Service. And I grew up in Olympia and loved backpacking around Mount Rainier as a kid. So that's a little brief introduction of myself.
Wow, I was in Olympia just yesterday, and I saw the passing of the Eid bill, which is a major Muslim holiday, and so really stoked about that. So over 100,000 Muslims living in the state of Washington. So for us, it was really a big moment of solidarity, everybody coming together to pass that bill to recognize our holiday of the Eid. And today's the 3rd day of Eid, so you may wish me Eid Mubarak. I'll take that as a yes. My name is Nagmana Shirazi, and I'm a scientist and educator, a medical professional, and a community leader. Not necessarily self-proclaimed, but as a South Asian immigrant, and a single mother, and the first Muslim immigrant woman of South Asian descent to win a primary in Spokane City, I connect with people through culture, food, and advocacy for social, racial, and climate justice. Faith and justice are deeply intertwined in my life. Islam teaches us to care for one another and the environment. So recognizing that our role as stewards of the earth is really, really important to me. So in my various capacities, working in the climate, environment, refugee, immigrant, and Asian person of color realms, I work to combat environmental racism and advocate for policies that protect marginalized communities disproportionately affected by climate change. Hope is central to this work, as the Quran reminds us. It is He who has made you successors upon the earth. And so this verse calls us to responsibility and offers reassurance that our efforts have meaning. In a time of crisis, uncertainty about the future can bring about both trust and doubt, serenity and anxiety. Yet for all of us, may this be a time to be renewed in hope that our actions today will leave a just and sustainable world for future generations.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Molly Weisel. I am a rabbi, and Kia's correct. I'm a rabbi at a synagogue in Bellevue, and I live in Linwood. And I grew up in and work in a synagogue in the Reform denomination tradition within Judaism, so one of the liberal denominations, and also very happy and honored to be a board member along with Nagmana for Earth Ministry, and have always been very passionate about the environment, caring for the earth, being in wilderness. So I tend to bring that with me wherever I go. I'm at a congregation. It's actually the congregation I grew up at. So I have been in this congregation in a sense my whole life, but came back as a rabbi in 2020. So this is my 5th year back in Washington State. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Vera. I work for the Intercommunity Center for Peace and Justice. I just want to say I'm blown away by all these women and all their power. And I'm just really honored to be here among all these different faiths caring for the earth. I have been lucky for the last year and a half to be serving at IPJC, a Catholic organization that is seeking to keep the legacy of religious organizations that are hoping to pass the baton to new people, younger people, to carry on their care for community action. And I've been blessed to be serving in Latino communities in farm working areas, but also throughout the state of Washington and Oregon, and just helping Latino women take initiative for the things they need, but also walking alongside and witnessing the indigenous different tribal movements happening along land removal, and then salmon and orca conservation, orca carving, cultural revitalization. That's how I met Reverend A.C. Churchill. And I'm just floored by all these women here. So thank you for the invitation.
Our pleasure. Very excited to have all of you here. My first question for you all is going to be maybe a hard one. It is, how do you define hope? And whoever feels called to speak can speak. Unless you would like me to choose.
Yeah. Go ahead and
I
choose.
can. Okay. Rabbi Molly, you nodded first, so I'm going to choose you. How do you define hope?
I was nodding for you to choose, but yeah, happy to do it. Yeah, I think it's funny because your introduction, the quote you read was like, everyone knows what hope is. For me, hope is an orientation of how to be in the world. When I was in rabbinical school in seminary, I did an extra year to get my master's in Jewish education, and the sort of like informal motto of the school of education that I went to, they always say, question what is, imagine what can be, and work to build what you imagine. And so for me, the idea of hope is about being in the world and not being, Pollyannish about, or being naive or putting your head in the sand or whatever, but like really questioning what is. And then taking that next step, orienting yourself to a place where you're imagining the possibility of what can be in the future.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Deki.
It was funny. This question actually kind of threw me a little bit because we don't speak about hope too much in Buddhism. And so I had to kind of think about it and ask some of the seniors. And to me, what it really means is kind of a combination of potential and of recognizing our potential really in Buddhism to become fully awakened, to have completely clear, peaceful minds. But it's also in terms of perspective, of continuously shifting our minds to broader perspectives, and also possibilities, looking at things that there's infinite possibilities of how things can go. And so to really keep having that open view and trying to stay positive in looking at those possibilities, our potential, and those perspectives. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go with Nagmana next because you're next in the circle on my screen.
Sounds good. Deki, that's really interesting what you just said, that, in Buddhism, we don't necessarily start with hope, but there's always this concept of renewal, so, and a continuity, I suppose. But in Islam, we very much are taught to have the hope to reach the hereafter, the hope to be doing better, the hope to aspire to be something better. So hope is the desire and expectation of good things to come. And so even when the future is uncertain, right? So it is the light that keeps us moving forward despite setbacks. We all experience moments where hope wavers, where we oscillate between confidence and doubt, serenity and anxiety. But hope is also what lifts us out of despair, reminding us that renewal is always possible. So I think we're on the same page on that one. So the Quran actually reinforces this thought and says, there's this verse, it says, and do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah. Indeed, none lose hope in the mercy of Allah except the most ungrateful people. It's 1287 in the Quran. So in my climate work, I see communities grappling with the reality of environmental degradation, yet also planting seeds of renewal, both literally and figuratively. Every tree we plant, every policy we fight for, every voice we raised in advocacy, it's an act of hope. So I see the same thing in our communities of color and immigrants and refugees. So for me, this hope plays a huge part in how I move forward. I don't think I could continue if I didn't have hope. So that's how I define it. Like, is that whole sense of continuity and, just developing and being better.
Thank you. And Vera.
I'm just really moved by what Nachmanan shared. For me, this whole year and a half at APJC has been about casting seeds of hope. Sometimes they feel so vulnerable, so small. But for me, hope is action. Hope is walking with someone, listening, making space for someone, especially for stories that are beyond what I have experienced, and being transformed by this encounter. I feel like walking alongside farm workers in Marawa, close to the Hanford nuclear power plant, close to the lower Snake River and the confluence with the Columbia River, has made me realize that there's always someone working the land, and that planting means a lot, even though it seems small. And I had the privilege to plant seeds and shrubs with different tribal leaders, and I just feel like hope is unexpected sometimes, and just being open for it, even if it's uncomfortable. Just keep acting on the small, beautiful things and encountering them to let us transform us is what help us go forward together towards the light together, even though we're different, especially because we're different.
Thank you. Vera and Agmana, you both led us perfectly into my next question, which is hope a passive feeling, or does it require action, or can it be both? Rabbi Molly, I'm going to ask you first.
Sure. Is it a passive feeling? Well, for me, hope is on its own, maybe not necessarily an active thing. It could be a passive feeling, but I think hope, and especially in Judaism, influences how we choose to be in the world. So if you are if you have hope, or I don't even know if it's like having hope, but allowing yourself to like attune to the things that bring hope. And if you embody that sense of hope, then I think it is active, because it requires you to be in the world in a way where you're still building towards something and planting those seeds, like Vera said, and taking actions in the ways that you feel like you can to make a difference, because you are, maintaining a sense of hope in the possibility for whatever the thing is in the future.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it. This is going to be your order from here on out. It'll be Rabbi Molly, and then now Deki.
Yeah, I think in Buddhism it definitely does kind of require that level of action, and uh, a close word to hope in Buddhism, it would be a joyous effort, which is a quality that we really actively try to cultivate. And it's a mind that takes delight in working for the benefit of others and takes delight in doing virtuous actions. And in doing that, we can feel inspired to really live our lives in a meaningful way. And a kind of a core belief in Buddhism is karma, which is the relationship of cause and effect, and it operates kind of on an ethical dimension. And so if you act in a positive, beneficial way, you're going to experience positive results. If you act in harmful ways, you're going to experience unpleasant results. And this causes us to kind of take responsibility for our thoughts and our actions, and it does give kind of that inspiration to take that ownership of like, okay, I can choose to act in beneficial ways that I know will create positive results in the future, and I can actively choose to not cause harm because I don't want to suffer in the future, and I don't want to cause harm to others in the future. So it is quite a very kind of active, engaged, taking personal ownership for our actions and recognizing that those actions have big results. Yeah.
Thank you. Nagmana.
This is so true. I think the third component to that, what you were describing, is the fact that, we have to do this and we have to continue doing it unless we do something about whatever it is that we're trying to achieve or make a change for. It's never going to happen, right? So, in my opinion, hope is not passive, it demands action. True hope pushes us to act in ways that align with our vision for a better future. Often people become discouraged, feeling that their efforts are too small to make a difference. But hope thrives when we work towards change, however small the step may seem. And the Quran teaches that indeed Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. It's Quran 13:11. So, first, we must help ourselves and do all that is possible so we can lead by example and be that beacon of hope to show others that it is possible. We each have a part to play in the fight, for instance, for climate justice. And I'm using that because we're the Earth Ministry and because that's also kind of my jam and basically my big passion in life. So, in the fight for climate justice, hope is the force that drives action. It is seen in youth led movements, in communities rebuilding after environmental disasters, time after time after time, and in policies shaped to protect the planets that we, as Earth Ministry and other people, advocate for and fight for and work towards. And so, hope, in my opinion, it demands perseverance. It is what transforms an uncertain future into one worth striving for.
Hmm. There's so many threads there. I think hope is walking forward, even though it's hard and there's a storm. Um, I got to meet with some people today. We were evacuated from the Malibu fire earlier in January. We were gathering for an ecology conference with the West Jesuit region. And we were all remembering walking through nature quietly while the fire was whipping and the winds were going. And each step in quiet was meaningful, even though it was super scary because we were grieving for those other species, for animals and plants, but also people losing their homes. And today I met quite a few of those people, and I felt hope is rebounding and tending to the inner garden inside, the quiet and the impact we bring outside, but not forgetting that what we cultivate inside comes out in our actions, in our words, and the walk. And so never to stop walking forward together. I really agree. We cannot do this alone because we get lost. We think we know better, but we need each other, and we need other species too to be humbled and to go beyond what we envision, to work for the bioregion and the well-being of others, including ourselves, but not just ourselves.
Thank you, Vera. So you brought up you just have to continue to walk and work with others. But how do you all or your traditions, how are you able to maintain that hope in order to be able to keep walking? Is there something special that you hold on tight to? Is it just, you get yourself in a groove and it just keeps going? But how do we maintain hope, especially in difficult times? Um, let's see. Rabbi Molly? Yes, you got it.
I'm ready. But I will say going first feels unfair because I don't get to like react to everyone else. But it's okay. I am enjoying learning from you all. So, there's a quote in one of the core Jewish texts, the Mishnah, that says something like, everything is foreseen by God, but nothing is written. And the idea of free will is core to Judaism. And part of that is this idea of the opportunity for renewal, as other people have talked about. And so every day, the first prayer that we are supposed to say when we wake up is a prayer called Modeh or Moda'ani. I give thanks, and we give thanks that we are that we have our souls and that we are alive for another day. And there's another prayer that we say like a little mini version every day, but then the big version of it is our High Holy Day season, which is around the idea of turning and returning. And so all of Jewish life moves around this idea that nothing is doomed. Like, we always have the opportunity to make a different choice, to pivot one way or another. And so I think in those moments, like Nagamana mentioned, when that feeling of futility is really hard, that is something very grounding for me, is this idea that we can always, things can always change. Just because it might feel hopeless, we don't know what it's going to be, and we can be part of making that change for the better. And the other piece about, Judaism and many faith traditions is the importance of storytelling and telling our people's stories. And there's some emerging research around the connection between knowing your stories, your family stories, your community stories, and resiliency and ability to have tools to be resilient. And so, we tell our stories every year. We tell our story from the Exodus, of our story of liberation, of getting out of narrow places that we feel stuck in. So we have stories that we tell, which is also a really good reminder that, yeah, things feel really hard. And we're not the first generation to go through hard things. And our, we've gotten through it before. It is not a straight shot that it's going to be easy, but knowing that that is something that we have gone through as a people and we can continue to face together.
Yeah, I love how these conversations going of the threads of similarities. That's what's so beautiful about this. I think that overcoming, or the opposite of hope, is having that hopelessness and feeling discouraged. And so how important it is to remember that our actions and our thoughts really do make a difference. Like Nagama said, like, even if it's on a tiny, tiny level, it's still a drop, and that drop has a ripple effect. And so to not doubt that, and to remember that. Another thing that my teacher, the abbess of the abbey, has been talking about is how often we go into, she's been calling it future tripping, and just imagining the worst case scenario. I mean, the world's falling apart, the country's falling apart, all this horrible, horrible things. But we really don't know what's going to happen. And all that future tripping is so much fear and anxiety inducing, and it doesn't do anything. And so it doesn't really help us. It only distracts us from really thinking logically and thinking wisely about what steps we need to do to move forward. And another thing is kind of having rigid expectations about how the future should be, that we should all get along, we should be able to care for the planet, everybody should care for the planet, why don't they care for the planet? And so, but those, we have those expectations, but those aren't the reality. And so we need to have kind of this wise hope of knowing that things can change, but also being realistic of where we're at. I mean, the Buddha taught kind of his fundamental four truths are, the first truth is life is unsatisfactory, that it's not easy, it's hard. And the second one is that he taught the causes for that, which is largely our confusion about how things really exist. And then the third one, which is so important to remember, is that peace is possible. We're not stuck in that unsatisfactory situation in life. And then he taught a path of how to do that, starting with ethical conduct and taking, again, like I said, taking responsibility for our actions and recognizing our actions create effects and that we really do influence each other. And so, yeah, to really take ownership of that and be inspired to do our part and to really help and to be inspired that we can help. And that makes a really big difference.
Wow. So Molly, definitely what you were talking about, storytelling is so true because we learn by example. We have to have those role models to kind of motivate us most of the time, right? And sometimes that's what the issue is. One of the challenges that we have, when what we face in difficult times is to take that first step because life is so full of uncertainty. So, having a role model really helps to say, oh, they did it, I can do it too. Therefore, storytelling is really, really important. I agree. So, as I said, life is full of uncertainties, and in difficult times, hope can feel distant. Climate disasters, systemic racism, and economic instability, these create an overwhelming sense of despair for us, for many of us. Often we encounter people who are cynical about the future, convinced nothing can bring them happiness or relief. And so Islam teaches that hardship is never permanent. The Quran reassures us, for indeed, with hardship comes ease. It's 94, 5-6. This verse reminds us that hope must endure even in the darkest moments. When I see communities disproportionately impacted by climate change, I am reminded that our response through policy, advocacy, and solidarity can restore hope. Through faith, collective action, and resilience, we sustain one another when hope is hard to find.
Wow. I just feel I've been reflecting a lot in my own tradition, the importance of mystery. In times of uncertainty, there's a lot of things we choose to do that could impact positively others, especially climate-wise. Who feels seen, who feels silenced. It has been heartbreaking to witness a lot of things lately. And I feel that for me, it's very important to decenter me and decenter sometimes my own tradition and be really questioning where is, and I use this word carefully, like mercy. Like there is, my tradition does not shy away from death and suffering, but always hand in hand with acknowledging that through that suffering, which is not willingly chosen, but is unavoidable, like a river, we flow and can be life-giving. We cannot avoid grief. I think one of the things I see lately is people are just shutting down, and I see youth are struggling to see role models that thrive beyond. And it's hard, this hardship of acknowledging there is hard things happening worldwide. There's wars, there's environmental inequity, there is environmental injustice towards people in the South, but also towards other species, towards people have endured genocide, people who continue told they don't belong and their stories don't matter. And I feel like my job is to take a step back and listen, not hide away from the grief, witness, and not be almighty mercy driven, but really look with a tender gaze of love without judgment to try to find how can I serve others, and also and I use this because of our sacramentally be present. I feel like because of social media and the constant noise and hardship and wars, we're constantly distracted and we see people struggle. So how can we be present, whatever that means, in our traditions, in our bodies, to each other, to our families, in our communities, and to the divine we're in relationship with. I think it's important to be part of that mystery, even though it's super scary. That's what I got it.
Thank you. You all kind of naturally answered my next question. So I kind of just want to open it up. The question was, what is your relationship between hope and faith? You all very eloquently expressed that. But you made a good point, Rabbi Molly. You going first means you don't really get to engage with what the other panelists are saying, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah.
So I want to take this moment to maybe, if you want to respond to what you've heard, any of you respond, or just share more about maybe that you haven't already said about the relationship between hope and your faith.
Yeah. Well, I want to say I love what you said, Vera, about like decentering yourself. And one of the other things, or another who that helps me maintain hope. Two people that are in this room, Nagmana, and I'm going to call out Janet Farnes, are two people who I am just continually inspired by, because I think in the moments where I'm like, oh, there's just too much and I'm tired and I just want to go take a nap, Nagmana and Janet are like always just like going and doing so many things. And that is also very inspiring to me and helps. It's like, it's great for like bringing you back, and you need, like, if you're at, I don't know, places where people dance celebrations, you like there's always someone who's like pulling people onto the dance floor. Like you need someone like that to pull you back. So, the one thing that I wanted to add, to what I said earlier about the connection between hope and my religious tradition is I actually wanted to share a quote that is one of my favorite quotes from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, who was a wonderful rabbi, scholar, teacher, writer. And he has a famous quote about the difference between optimism and hope. So I just want to share this because I come to this often for myself. So he wrote, people often confuse optimism and hope. They sound familiar, but in fact, they're very different. Optimism is the belief that things are going to get better. Hope is the belief that if we work hard enough together, we can make things better. And then he talks about how it doesn't take a lot of courage to be an optimist, but you need a great deal of courage to have hope. And then he writes, no Jew, knowing what we do about history and our own past, so often written in tears, can be an optimist. But no Jew who is a true Jew can ever give up hope. That is why Judaism is, for me, the voice of hope in the conversation of humankind. Hope is what transforms the human situation. That is something that really resonates for me. And like I said, I turn to that often as a source of inspiration.
Yeah, I'll share one more thing. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, they have kind of a genre of teachings called mind training. And it's really, it's kind of translated as cleansing our attitude. And it's all about really shifting our perspective and transforming challenges, adversity into our spiritual practice, and really kind of leaning into our problems and seeing that it's those challenges that make us grow the most, and to really actually kind of flip the mind, to learn to see our challenges and be like, great, this is a wonderful opportunity to learn and to grow. Like, I mean, I'm very far away from being able to do that, but just knowing that that is possible, to actually see, to train ourselves to kind of identify, like, okay, what are the positive things that can come out of this? How can I learn and grow in my own spiritual practice from whatever situation, rather than shying away from it, but really kind of leaning into it and seeing that it really is, yeah, like many people have said, that it's in those most challenging situations where we grow the most. And so to actually, yeah, to not feel overwhelmed by them, but to lean in and feel inspired by them.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna go back to, sorry, were you're done, Deki?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, sorry. I mean, I'm going to go back to something that Vera said just now, about decentering their faith. It's really, I'm an immigrant. I've only been in the United States, okay, it's not only, it's like 15 years. I forget, it's been 15 years. I feel like it was just recent. But that really is important because living in Pakistan, that's where I'm from originally, right? Born and raised. It's a kind of a thing where everybody's Muslim, just like me, like everybody's brown, just like me, right? Everybody has the same things as I do, same opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. But coming to the United States, I think, was eye-opening for me in the sense that it gave me an opportunity to make friends among Jewish people, which is like, I would never have been able to do that when I lived in Pakistan because it's all Muslim. Minority religion is, we have Christianity and we also have Judaism, but living in Pakistan, I had some friends growing up when I was in college and school, but not anyone that I knew who was Jewish. So for me, this has been different. And then, atheism, or being an atheist, but still having that concept of, well, there's a higher thing, and that's the universe, and we all exist, and therefore we all relate to one another in one way or the other. And so for me, where hope and faith are concerned, they're kind of intertwined, they're inseparable. I think faith assures us that when we cannot see the path forward, we're not alone. I have to admit, I've had a lot of challenges, being an immigrant, being a single mother, having no friends or family, to begin with when I got here. So the only person I could rely on was God, like, I would lay all my troubles in his lap and like, you deal with it. I don't know how you're gonna make this happen, but it's you deal with it. It's a very Muslim thing to do and a very Pakistani thing to do. But if I didn't have that comfort, I don't know if I would have survived or not, right? So knowing that I'm not alone, and that hope, therefore, in Islam is deeply tied to trusting in Allah's plan, knowing that our struggles are not in vain. So because this was we were talking about the Jubilee and pilgrimages and all that. So the Hajj, which is one of the pillars of Islam, it's a sacred pilgrimage. It's a profound example of faith-driven hope. So pilgrims embark on this journey with exhaustion and uncertainty, yet the steps are fueled by hope for spiritual renewal, forgiveness, and closeness to God. So similarly, in climate justice work, we may not see the results of our efforts immediately, but we continue, right? We continue so that each action can bring us closer to healing the earth. Excuse me. So the Quran states that, and when my servants ask you about me, indeed I am near. I respond to the supplication of the supplicant when he calls upon me. And this is something very, very personal. But when I spread my prayer mat and I stand in front of him, we as Muslims are taught that we're right. There's like one veil between us and God. Like we are in His presence, and therefore whatever we are saying is said directly to Him, right? So we are in direct conversation with God. So therefore, even in certainty, hope allows us to trust in a future that holds justice, renewal, and peace. And so for me, hope and faith are very, very intertwined.
I'm really grateful for Deki's presentation. I feel like helping our souls to be silent, to witness what's around us, is really important in the connection between faith and hope. And I really relate to what you just said. I'm an immigrant too. My father comes from Berlin, is Berlin, communist Germany, mega uber atheist. My mom is from Spain. I was born and raised there. And now they live in Malaysia. So Eid Mubarak to you. Yeah, I just feel like being open to be present is very important. And I normally don't, to be honest, I mean, I work for IPJC. I'm honored to be there. But I feel like I've been having these insights where I see Christ in the face of farm workers that are undocumented and hiding after all these executive orders. And I just feel in my heart, you know, like Christ is in the indigenous leaders that are trying to be resilient, carving a canoe. And last weekend, planting and talking about how to deal with ongoing silencing. And I just feel like trusting the spirit within and continue to be in conversation with the world. You know, the rivers that surround us, the trees that bestow us with amazing oxygen, the fish, but also each other. And there's so much noise that finding a community that actually helps you be you. And I don't know, my church particularly has a very hard history, and my countries with Inquisition and with, you know, the Holocaust. And we're still working through understanding what all that meant. But what I know is that despite of the grief and through the grief, we can be present to each other and create generative spaces for new life, and that we owe it to ourselves and our ancestors. I learned this from the indigenous tribal leaders I work with. Like, I think of my grandparents and the wars they went through, and I think of the elders that these tribal leaders are honoring, and also the relations, you know, the plants and the animals that honor us with their well-being and give us life with clean air, water, and soil. And I feel like it's paradoxical, where we're unique, but also we're much smaller than we realize. So how can we walk together and respect each other and be uniquely who we are without fighting? I think that has been so hard. Maybe we don't need to fight. Our faiths echo each other. And I don't know. I just hope our faith and our hope can harmonize together, because I see so many beautiful echoes and understandings and shared values amongst all of us.
Thank you all so much for going more in depth. I think I do know we are at our final question. You've all been so motivating and so inspiring and so insightful. Now I'm in, thoughts and practices, but I'm wondering for our last question, Nagmana, you touched upon it just a little bit. What are some ways that we are able to all that my inspiration and wanting to do something for Earth Ministry around the Jubilee year specifically was because it's a Jubilee year, but also the concept of pilgrimages is very interesting to me. And then me and AC sat down and started thinking of like, okay, well, what are some other physical ways to be able to cultivate hope and maintain hope in a more physical sense? And I'm wondering if any of you all have ways you do that, or others in your faith tradition might have, what have you. And we'll start with Rabbi Molly, of course.
I will answer that, and I will also incorporate Katrina's wonderful question as well. So yeah, well, I was thinking, for in Judaism, the Jubilee year is very much related to the idea of release, and tied to the Shemitah cycle, which Earth Ministry has done some projects with. So I was thinking about Jubilee in that sense of like letting go, release, which made me think about Mel Robbins, if anyone's familiar with her "let them" concept of like people who are things that don't serve you, like, okay, let them do that. But just what would it mean to like not, I kind of connected to Vera what you said of like, why why fight on, and amplify conflict when you can just, like, if someone has a different way of being in the world, like, let them, and you focus on the good, hopeful things you want to do to try and bring the change we want into the world. But I think what that looks like for me is within Jewish tradition. Well, one is that, like, so much of what we do is within community, and also so much of what we do is tied to the cycles of the earth naturally, and the cycle of the new moon. So every new month in the Jewish calendar is tied to a new moon, and within Judaism, there are often communities that have circles that get together, groups of people, to, like, essentially call out the fact that it's a new month, there's a new moon, which is not when the moon is its brightest. And so making space for a few weeks to think about what you want to let grow inside of you. And then we have the full moon, and then the rest of the month to think about, okay, now what am I releasing? So, like, what am I welcoming and what am I releasing? And so there is common for Jewish communities to have circles or groups of people that have ritually get together in that cycle as part of a community, because it's one thing to, like, notice it on your own, but just being able to, like, have those conversations with people on a monthly basis is really can be transformative. And let's see what else. And we just welcomed in the new month of Nisan for us, which is where we welcome. We have Passover coming up, which I mentioned. And this month is a month it's all about, like, emergence and transformation. And for us, yeah, all of that work is done better in partnership and in community. And so that is what we try to do together. I'm sure there's much more to be said, but pass it for now.
That's beautiful, Rabbi Molly. Hearing about the close link to ceremonies with the moon. In the Buddhist tradition, every 2 weeks, new moon and full moon is where we confess any transgressions we've done on our precepts and then renew them. So it's very similar of, kind of acknowledging, okay, I made these mistakes. Like, it's hard to keep all these precepts and things, but I'm growing and wanting to do better. And then just kind of, it's a very feeling of cleansing, confessing and acknowledging, and then feeling inspired to, like, okay, but I can do better. And it's the time where the community comes together. So it's very beautiful how that's also tied to the moon and the earth. And I think from a Buddhist point for the doing something to cultivate hope in a physical sense, what came to mind kind of naturally was to meditate and to really go inward and to really be rooted inward first so that we can connect with our deepest values of love and compassion and what's most meaningful towards us. Really recognizing, in the Buddhist term, and I think all of us share this, that really recognizing that everybody wants to be happy and nobody wants to suffer. And to really just be motivated by those two core things, and recognizing that we're really all in this together. And so from that deep centering and being clear on that aspiration, from then we can move out to work with others and to engage in civic engagement or be active and voice our values and our aspirations together collectively, because there's so much power in working together and talking together and feeling united, recognizing that we're not separate, and that's so powerful and so beneficial. That's how we can really help make a difference. So and maybe I'll make one more little plug that you can also come to the Abbey this weekend. We're having a retreat it's called Stand Up for Compassion Retreat. And so it's online and in person, but
What time is that, Vicky?
It's Saturday and Sunday, and there's 4 different talks that people can join in, and so it'll be, yeah, kind of. You can look at the Shrivasti Abbey website. So.
Thank you. Well, according to the Islamic tradition, we are basically responsible for our neighbors. So when you talk about community, and that's why there's a mosque, like if you ever go to a Muslim country, you will hear the azan from so many around you, like all the mosques around you will, because the mosque is, they have these big, huge loudspeakers outside the minaret to kind of proclaim that it's the hour for prayer. Now come say that your congregational prayer, right? We do it 5 times a day. And so the mosque becomes like a congregational place so according to my faith, sorry, going back to how we are responsible for 40 houses ahead of me, 40 houses behind me, 40 houses to my right, and 40 houses to my left. So these are my neighbors. This is my community where I live. And these are the people who would probably go to that mosque so that they can be in community. So that if somebody who goes there 5 times a day doesn't show up on a day or a couple of days, they're like, ooh, something is wrong. We better go check on him. People will end up at your door and say, hey, are you okay? Do you need help with anything? What's going on? So that's the kind of, so answering Katrina's question about that, and then that really was, I missed having people around me when I moved to the United States. I moved to Spokane 12 years ago, and the first year I was just concentrated and focused completely on doing the work, this new degree that I had got, this new work that I had learned, and I was trying to do it. It was very, very scientific, very hardcore science, looking at DNA and chromosomes. And so it was like really learning this new skill. And I was trying to be a good mother, provide for my child, and knowing that I was always going to have this job, right? So that was my focus. And I came out of that after a year, the company folded, and I was like, oh, now what do I do? So I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any family. I hadn't built a community around me. So that was so important for me to have done. And that's when I was like, okay, where's the mosque? And then I kept Googling mosque near me, and there wasn't one. There was just an Islamic center. And so, I was like, okay, now I'm really left high and dry. And so that's when I really went out of my way to build community around me, to look for like-minded people and to learn from them and learn about resources. Like that was one of the hardest times of my life, I think. But eventually I found my community, and I've moved on from that. I have alhamdulillah, as we say, thank you God, I have a decent job, making a decent living, and I have lots and lots of friends and people who care for me. So that's really, really important. So hope it's not just a feeling, it is something we cultivate through action, ritual, and community. And thank you, Katrina, for asking that question. So whether it's through faith-based pilgrimages, environmental restoration efforts, or social movements, whatever I'm active in, hope is made tangible when I gather to work toward a common goal with other people. For me, that's really, really important. And so the Quran commands us to care for the earth. So in it is said, and do not cause corruption upon the earth after its reformation. So that corruption necessarily doesn't just mean in societal values. It doesn't mean just in how we are. It also means, whether it's the atmosphere, the environment, or whatever we are talking about. But it also means about personal relationships and how we are with other people, right? So this call to action then reminds us that hope is sustained when we work to restore what has been harmed. Community events such as tree planting efforts, climate marches, Ramadan iftars, and interfaith dialogues offer spaces where people can reconnect with purpose and possibility. My iftars, I always have people from all different faiths come, because then that's one way for me to kind of break down the barriers and normalize all of us, right? Learn about other people's faith traditions and grow this community that I've started to grow. And so hope is renewed in the simple act of coming together for me, knowing that our shared efforts can lead to lasting change. Whether in spiritual reflection or community activism, we find strength in knowing that we are not alone in our pursuit of justice and a better future. And to me, that's really helpful. And that's the biggest piece of hope that I have.
Some of the best community I have found has been at a community garden by Beacon Hill. Through the pandemic, I became a King County Master Gardener. I feel we're still, working with youth, but also working with adults who are teachers or working remotely through the pandemic. I feel there's all this distancing that has been happening and still chronically taking a toll on many of us. And I think community becomes the hearth that nurtures us and help us heal. I feel this absence perpetuated by the fact that many of us need social media or Zoom, to connect for work, but often those practices are disembodied. I have been noticing for me hiking, gardening, painting, really using my body to be present with my soul for and with others, especially if they're different. It's been so hard to see all the harrowing stripping of the importance of true, authentic diversity. I feel like for me, hope and faith are tangible, and community shows up, especially when someone feels left out, when someone feels they're in the margins. That's when we need to soup up and all together show up, even though it's uncomfortable, especially because it's uncomfortable. And I've just been thinking a lot at the importance of bringing our bodies with us, because all our traditions entail being present by breathing, by prayer, by offering, and pilgrimage. I feel we shouldn't forget the body, because all this mental health crisis and angst also comes from forgetting we're integral. We're not just body, we're soul. And despite of our differences, especially, I think there's a synergy. We can all work together. Yeah, it's not easy. I think it's messy, but I'm hopeful. I think let's keep showing up in beautiful, respectful, sacramental ways to witness each other and act together, for new generations, but also for our souls and our bodies that are hungering for connection with the water and the earth and the soil, but also each other beyond the noise that is happening.
Thank you all so much for everything that you've been talking about. I think we have one other question. You all answered one. And just so everyone knows, we're now in the Q&A portion of it. So if you do have a question within the next, let's say, 8 minutes, please type it up in the chat so we can talk about it. And this question is not towards anyone specifically, so if you want to elaborate on this point, feel free to speak. And it's from Jerry. Do you feel hope breeds/feeds action, or that action feeds hope? Or is it symbiotic regardless? We've kind of touched on this, but if we have more thoughts, please share.
I would think it's cyclical. One leads to the other and back again, you know? That's my view of it, because I can't have action without hope, and I can't have hope without the action.
I agree. I also have been wondering the garden within. We need to achieve peace within. And I've been doing a lot of breathing with Buddhist and yoga friends, because I think these times require a lot of breathing and grounding and observing. And I think tending to the within, and then not so much reacting, but intentionally being present to what's around us. So yes, hope and faith, but also addressing the within and the without. So we're really careful what our words and our actions bring to others, because we can harm plants, animals, youth, family, because we're hurting. In times of crisis, we hurt. It's uncomfortable. I wish there was no suffering and pain, but there's tensions and frictions. And how can we set aside peacefully? How can we transform that in seeds of hope and be present? It's hard work. So I just want to address that inside and outside, that faith and hope happens both within. We cannot just do it outside, but within, we cannot do outside, and vice versa. I cannot be alone in the desert, even though it's Lent. I have to go outside. enact with others as well.
I think I agree about the cyclical nature, and I also think thinking about like when you're so paralyzed by either like a sense of hopelessness or something like that, and the pot like action is like moving your body, like getting into your body, like Vera said, and there's all sorts of research around like smiling, what that does for you, and like the power of suggestion of like if you do things physically that it like gets you to a place that you maybe are not feeling. And in Judaism, so our tradition around death is, well, it's a forever, grief is a forever process, but when somebody dies, there's a very intense period of mourning that and then there are rituals built into essentially getting the person back into the world, that you like all you do is mourn for 7 days, and then after that you're still in mourning, but not, you start to do a little bit more, and it's actually not until a year later that you're quote unquote back, although it's never the same, but there's like it's built into like you can't even, you're not there yet, but like just take these steps one by one, and that's like what helps you get to a place of feeling like you can go on living. So for me there's a parallel around like just taking little actions, and then that breeds a sense of hope that then can ideally be cyclical.
I think everyone shared beautifully.
Let's see. It doesn't look like there are any more questions. I'll give it a couple minutes while we get comfortable sitting in a little bit of silence and pondering and waiting to see if someone types. Okay, I won't make us all sit in silence anymore. But I do want to thank all of you so much for joining us tonight and sharing all of your wisdom and all of your experience, and all your beautiful thoughts on these different topics. And I don't know if you had a moment to see the chat, but there are also a lot of thanks and appreciation for everything you have all shared tonight. I just want to shout that out so you can all see as well. And next up, I guess we will wrap up, and AC will share their screen. Because I just want to tease what we have coming up for the next portion of the year.
Okay. Oh, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna get it. I'll go ahead and present. Where are we?
Go to the very bottom bar, AC.
Lord, Lord, here we go. We did it, y'all. Thanks. Appreciate y'all's affirmations. Go ahead, Kia, take us away.
So for summer 2025, starting last year, we began this seasons model. So each season is a new thing. And Earth Ministry, Washington Interfaith Power and Light is now doing a focus on energy, health, and water. So those are our themes. And a lot of stuff can fit under that umbrella, but we're still doing it seasonally. So for summer, our focus, the overall focus is going to be energy and health. For energy efficiency, but also health disparities and reducing harmful impacts around the state. So wanting to do hands-on attainable energy efficiency projects. We are kind of in the energy and health this season as well, because we have the big set cap program, which is about getting or sacred communities, their energy projects, the tax credit program. But we want to do something that's more attainable, that people can actually get their individual hands on for themselves, their homes, and their communities. So we'll be doing education and programs about that, but also education on health disparities across the state. It'll be very not individualized, but we're not all the same across the state. We don't have the same concerns. Some people have too much water, some people have not enough, some people have very polluted water. It depends on where you're at, but we want to educate the differences across the state, and then also work on reducing harmful impacts that are contributing to this. And then in autumn, the focus is going to be health. And that is going to be health in relation to food, which is something I'm very excited about. It's a very big interest of mine, for agriculture and farm workers and the environment in general. So we want to do something that highlights all these different areas. So having someone who works with different communities across the state, for like ranchers who are doing work in the state, and how are they responding to climate change? How are individual people of faith responding to it in relationship to their food? How are indigenous communities responding to it in their own individual way? But all around food and the different ways it impacts the state and the climate. And agriculture is just very important in our state. I think it's important in every state, but it's very big in Washington state. And we have a lot of amazing work being done, so we want to highlight that. But also about Indigenous food waste specifically will be another event. So that is highlighting Indigenous food systems, whether that's past or present, discussing Indigenous land stewardship, and then thinking of native seeds and where and when to use native pollinators, as far as, saving other wildlife, but as well as food, because food is very important, and how we interact with food and the pollinators, we can't ignore that. So we need to discuss it one way or another. And so we're going to bring in different pieces of that for our fall programming. And I just wanted to give you all a heads up. We got a lot coming on and a lot of new stuff that we haven't done before. And I'm going to pass it to AC.
Thanks, Kia. So our last thing that we want to kind of give you all a heads up about is a new thing that we're doing with our advocacy program. So this Saturday, April 5th, there will be events that are scheduled across our state and our country to protest and to rally around the flood of chaos and cruelty and injustice that's flowing all around us and all around those we love, around the environment and the creatures and the water systems, the land that we love. So we are we'll be engaging in a new to us direct action organizing program that will and then we'll use these events on April 5th to launch this new program. It'll be done in a decentralized way. This is only a teaser. You'll be having more information coming out about this in the next day or so. So if you have questions about this, don't worry. We're hoping to answer these questions for you, but wanted to let you know that we recognize that the things that are happening across our state, across our country, requires us and to show up for these moments as people from sacred traditions, people of faith and conscience, people of practice, to really, mobilize ourselves to care for this land, and in lots of different ways. And you've heard lots of different hope pieces this evening. This is another one that we add to this piece of direct action organizing. So more about that coming probably tomorrow. So if you are registered and have your email set up for us, email and get emails from us, you will be getting an email about that. Finally, I just wanted to say another thank you. Thank you to all of our amazing presenters, and thank you so much to Kia for your work in pulling this amazing panel together. We are glad that you chose to spend part of your evening here with us and our panel. I want to say that one of the hope pieces that feels so important to me is you all kind of touched on your own kind of sacred traditions, and there's a quote that I often will go to, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It's attributed it to Saint Augustine, and it says, "Hope has two beautiful daughters, one named anger and one named courage. Anger to recognize the injustice in the world, and courage to believe that we can do something about it." And so I hear that from all of our panelists this evening, is this recognition that there are ways that we can be part of the changes in the world that we want to see, that we hope to see, and to be part of creating a world where it is just, sustainable, healthy, and whole for Washington and those beyond the borders of our state. And just so grateful for all of you being here this evening. Hope that you, the rest of your evening, whatever it may be, that it enriches you, and that you take this message of hope out into your community and share it with those that you love, and that those that love you. And so grateful again that you were with us here this evening. So blessings to you all.